My name is Zoltán Rendes, and welcome to the third episode of We Are Endangered Species. I got the comment after the first two episodes that my welcome notes are a little bit too dark and negative, so I tried to hit a more positive tone today. Everything is awesome in this world. Of course, if we are talking about natural disasters, and if we are talking about that climate change and the climate disaster is on track as planned. And there is another piece of good news this month. We brought back the dire wolf from its extinction. But is that really good news? If you want to read about that story, go to www.weareendangeredspecies.com. If you have a question or a suggestion, please send it to info@weareendangeredspecies.com. And of course, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. But first, here is Balázs with the reason we are endangered species today.
And today's reason we are an endangered species is kids. One of my favorite Hungarian comics said, "Youth, the future is yours." It used to be that it was going to be ours. But we fucked it up. Well, I added that last part. The climate crisis is not just changing the planet, it is changing children. According to a study from the University of New Mexico, 99.5% of children's brains are human, and 0.5% is plastic. That's because we now have a calculated median intake rate for plastic. It's 553 particles per capita per day for children and 883 for adults, in case you were wondering. So we've changed children on a molecular level. But pollution in the air, levels of chemicals in the water, if they have access to it, because 739 million children are exposed to high or extremely high water scarcity, and 436 million children live in areas of high or extremely high water vulnerability, are also contributing factors. Go on Instagram and check out the floods, droughts, or heavy snowfalls in areas where they've never seen those before. Infants and young children are less able to regulate their body temperatures and more prone to dehydration, making them more vulnerable during extreme heat waves, which are also associated with an increase in mental health problems, including PTSD and depression. Lethal childhood diseases are spreading more because of environmental degradation, and it doesn't help to have adults in charge who don't believe in vaccinations. But there's hope, isn't there? They'll go to school and learn and change the world. Well, 40 million children are having their education disrupted every year because of disasters exacerbated by climate change, and this number continues to increase. Every year, environmental factors take the lives of an estimated 1.7 million children under the age of 5. The UN put out a report called Born into Climate Crisis. I've read it. Virtually none of their recommendations are being observed. While I look at today's decision makers and their inaction and negligence with regards to the climate change, I think they're suicidal. But with the effect they're having on kids, this attitude is worse. It's homicidal. So here to discuss the matter further is acclaimed actress whose new film, For the Love of Woman, is out now, and her new series, Subterrán, is on Netflix. But most importantly, she's the mother of an amazing 3-year-old girl. Anna Ularu is with us today. Anna, how angry are you?
First of all, lovely to see you all, and thank you for having me on this show. I think I'm a very active type of angry. I think anger in itself is a kind of a self-consuming Ouroboros snake. Anger without action is useless in a way. So I think the best that I can do for myself, for my community, for my family, for my daughter, and the legacy that I try to give this earth is to be angry, but at the same time educate myself and understand that we all know a lot less than we think we do, that we're all less expert at a lot of things. And the problem is, whenever a person thinks they're the smartest person in the room, that's the room you should leave right away, because that's usually, any kind of certainty to me is frightening. So what I try to do with my anger is try to educate it and try to, live by those precepts that are so simple, which is try not to soil the soil you're on. Try not to harm nature around you. Try to propagate nature around you if possible, because it is quite literally linked to your life. Try to, plant flowers so that bees may pollinate, etc., etc. So I'm angry on one side, but I realize that this kind of frustration, it can lead into this depression spiral. So I'm trying to rather do something than yeah.
And what is it? What is it that you try to do? Because I know you're environmentally conscious, and I know how do you. What is it you do on a daily basis to teach your daughter, or what is it you guys do together to get her, acclimated to this changing environment?
To be honest with you, and I think this is very telling on my, I don't know if it's denial that I'm in. I haven't started talking to her yet about the changes in climate. So I would rather help her grow up trying to do good rather than panic her at a very early age. She is 4 at the moment. I want her to see the beauty of the world around her and nature around her without thinking that it's going to burst into flames, probably within her lifetime. Because, like there's this old adage of not bringing children into a world where everything is falling apart and the birds will burst into flames in flight and so on and so forth. But I do believe, I just read this little meme somewhere, and it touched me a lot, that the best time to raise dragon slayers is in times of dragons. So I'm hoping to raise someone that has way too much love for the environment, which she does. My daughter is at this point, because I try to teach her that nothing is expandable out of what grows out of the earth, and what, like all these little bugs that we might be afraid of, and all these little things, that everything has a purpose. I think what we can do at this point, except, which is also something that I do, which is donate to different causes, to environmental causes, to, I don't know, helping build water wells in Africa and so on and so forth, is literally recycle. Like, it is the simplest thing to try to reduce your carbon footprint, to use less plastic, to package things differently, which is very simple. The amount of waste that we create every day is fascinating. I notice this about myself, and I'm someone who constantly recycles, which is why I notice that I generate so much waste. In consumerist society, we find ourselves constantly needing, wanting, finding something. So I think one option is to try to at least to do this for the moment. I myself am not a driver, so I've done my impact on not driving for the 39 years that I've been on this planet. Uh, so let's say 21 by the time I would have had a driver's license. And I think it's just like little incremental steps she has learned with her grandmother to plant, to have love for a garden and what a garden represents, and how life is born, and how it needs to be nurtured and fed and protected. And she also understands how simple it is for a useless object to be thrown out. And I've explained to her that it takes dinosaur existence years for that object to not exist anymore. And by the time it will have been absorbed in the earth, it will have harmed that earth that grows that little plant that she likes so much, in such a way that that little plant won't grow anymore, or it will grow with, it's very interesting to try to explain this disaster that we're in to someone who is just recently born, is recently understanding the world and seasons and seasonal changes, and is enjoying this. So it's very bizarre to have all of this grief in your heart and to still try to instill hope. But it is only with hope, I think, that a new generation can do something. and not turn nihilist, I guess. That's a huge danger. Turning nihilist, especially in Eastern European countries that have been plagued by communism, and thus our entire mentalities have been changed in such a way where we only think very short term, which is, you can see that in politics, you can see it in administrative decisions. It's all very short term. It's all, this will last as long as my mandate lasts and I can get that money and whatever. This will last. Like, no one builds anything or constructs anything for the future, and this is years of the communist yoke upon our necks. It's like, no, I want to secure my thing, mine now. I need to save myself now. So I think the essential bit about raising a new generation of dragon slayers is to make them understand that the world has been around for a very long time, and technically it should go on much further, and you should leave a clean spot behind you, a clean, pretty spot with grass and flowers.
I will jump on that Dragon Slayer attitude and example of yours, which I love. As a father, I've been very blunt with Oliver. Since he was a little baby, I've been blunt about the world. So I always tell him what's going on. And he understands what's going on now. But he's 13, of course. I'm at an
Yeah.
easier point when making Dragon Slayers. Do you think that we should tell the truth? We should be blunt with kids or sugarcoat it? Or do you think that we should sugarcoat it rather than preparing them with survival skills for the future? Or I wouldn't even say survival skills, because we are already, in a way, as humanity, in survival mode. So I would say skills which will help them to bloom, make life bloom again on Earth. What do you think about that? So being blunt is the good strategy, or sugarcoat it and let's wait until they grow up and find it out by themselves.
I honestly, I don't think I should sugarcoat anything. It's just a way of rephrasing things. And um because because I was her age when the revolution happened, and the first thing that I've seen, one of the first things I've seen on TV were a lot of Bulgarian cartoons and the live shooting of our dictator. So I have witnessed a, a death at the tender age of 4, and I thought, oh, so we celebrate. I genuinely thought for a while that when people are happy for Christmas, they're happy because Ceausescu died. So I was faced with that violence, and it was a shock. The world's cruelty is still something that shocks me. So, at least for a little while, I just want her to enjoy the fact that it's spring outside. And I'd rather phrase it in a way to herself that she makes things good around her. And it's so funny because she notices, like, she says, like, who left out this trash? This is not good. She knows what is good and not, without me telling her that the gas guzzling cars in the southern states where she's partially grown up, like the southern part of the United States of America, that those cars and those plants and that lovely black smoke that she was seeing are a big no-no for the blue sky.
Actually, I remember that when we were walking together on the streets in Bucharest, and she saw some trash that was left out on your street, and she goes, "Oh, it's here again." So she's really like sad about it. And yeah, but do you? It's funny because she picks up on it, and it does cause. I mean, I saw it on her face. It causes concern for her. And
Yeah.
but how do you reduce that concern? You read a lot. You're very well informed. You talk to a lot of people. You obviously are very aware of what's going on in the world. How do you make sure that it doesn't spill over into raising your daughter?
I think it's a balancing act, and thank you for your kind words, but I think it's really a balancing act because in my entire life I was always obsessed with this idea of war and having war close to you or at your doorstep or stuff like that. And when I was 15 and 9/11 happened, and the whole world kind of went up in arms over it, I thought, are we going to be those generations that grow up in that? I made this huge painting that was called Growing Up in Times of War, etc., etc. So I I think I try to protect her, and I try to constantly explain to her that some people are less careful with each other, with the world around them, with the environment, that some people are callous, that some people are downright evil. I do try to explain that. So it's less about sugarcoating. She also sees me get very angry, and I am very expressive when I'm angry with social injustice, with she knows that her mom participated in this march for freedom. She has come with me when we've done, the meetings for Europe. So she is aware that her parents think about things globally. She asks what this is about, and I try to explain her, to try to do a political redux, let's say, in which I try to explain to her why it's better to live in happy, helpful communities rather than not, which is something I've never really understood. I have never in my life understood this motivation of greed, and how much does one need in order to be satisfied. But again, the world is full of sociopaths, so I try to not let it spill over. Am I afraid that she's gonna at some point get encounter the internet and all that is awful about the internet, that she's gonna discover what is happening, what the difference is in treatment to her as a girl as opposed to men, etc., etc. Am I afraid that because of climate changes and the stress and the cortisol levels and whatever is in our food, she's going to get her period at 8 or some other bizarre thing? It's a literal over sexualizing of young girls that is done by what we have done. We're making possible child bearers at the end of child bearers, which is awful to me. The fact that everything that is happening in the world, and I'm wondering what it's like for you because you have a boy, but to me, like all these questions of having survived into the world as a woman so far come up and go like, okay, do I need to teach her how to hold a key between her fingers when she walks home at night like a little jagged object? You never think about those things. But also, to come back to the idea of what is happening to the world, do I need I think it's this balancing act of every day where you're trying to not instill fear and depression in someone who has nothing but trust in you and nothing but curiosity for the world, and to jade that and to endanger that and to blunt that sparkle, that shine, that sharpness. I would find it also a crime if someone can be informed and still hopeful, which I am. Thank all the gods, I am informed but still hopeful and still optimistic. If I could maybe instill that in her and not nihilism, I think I will have done a good job. Also, she gets to plant a lot of trees on my watch.
That's those two things that you raised that were interesting. I mean, just today I was reading the Wall Street Journal investigative piece. I don't know if you saw it, Randy. I don't know if you saw it, Anna. It's the
No.
well, turns out Elon Musk doesn't just have the 13 or 14 kids or whatever we know of. Apparently, he went on X and proposed to a whole bunch of women, saying like he wants to knock him up and he wants to have a legion of kids before Armageddon hits. And and like obviously there are people with god complex like that, and really screwed up in the head, and then there are you guys, who are, I mean, I know you and your husband, an absolutely loving couple, and you're raising your daughter in an, just like, it's it's a picture perfect setting, and everything you guys do and stand for, I love. But you had to make that decision. And a lot of people, including myself, are, very cautious and very much afraid, because it's not gonna depend on me. Any parent would want for their child to have a better life than they did, right?
Yeah.
However, it will not be up to me to guarantee fresh water, oxygen, things that are absolutely kind of essential to life.
Good stuff.
And if I
Yeah.
can't give that, then something has to break that barrier that makes you, jump the fence and go for it. But you
Yeah.
guys were brave enough, or you guys were committed enough, or you are thinking Dragon Slayer in Times of Dragons.
No, honestly, for us, it was because we had Ezra as an absolute choice during the pandemic when the world was very unstable and no one knew whether this would last forever, whether we would be in, mask and full gear forever, whether it would get worse, whether we didn't know. And maybe it was a bit, rushed, but we decided that we love each other, and that is a very beautiful love declaration. And I've always wanted to be a mother. I think I am made for it. Of course I make my mistakes and stuff like that, but my heart is very much into being a mother. And if I would have met my husband earlier, I would have had 5 children. I also respect everyone's decision, absolutely respect it, and find it super, like courageous and standing up for themselves to say, I will not. Good for you. I just always knew that I wanted to. And it would be very easy to call it a selfish act. But I think anyone that has children realizes that there's nothing selfish about having a child.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Like,
Like,
literally nothing. It
yeah,
is
it's the
the
most
most,
selfless thing
it's
actually,
the
because you
most
you
selfless
just you just give
still
yourself
exists.
to the task of growing and bringing
Yeah.
him or her up. Like you said, and just that caught my attention. You said that basically you were inspired by your love during COVID. I remember during COVID, I traveled a lot and on empty airports, empty places, on
Yeah.
empty airplanes, and it made me feel like a bit guilty about bringing a boy to this world. And I actually, during COVID, I was really troubled with this question Balazs put to you. I really felt that I put him into a situation which is going to be unbeatable. We are leaving an unlivable world to them. But I'm a hopeless optimist, so I kind of came around the thought that we can change a lot of things before we have to go
Mhm.
and leave this planet. But one thing I want to ask you, it's also something which is a little bit of distinction, but makes a big difference, is that these kids and are growing into this soft or slow apocalypse. They are basically, this is the new normal for them.
Yeah.
Do we have to tell them that this is not the normal thing, that it shouldn't be like this? Do we need to tell them, or not? Or they will grow into this new normal and they will see that it's not always bearable to live in this new normal, so they change it because it's coming from their instincts.
That's a very good question, and I don't feel like I have an answer for that. There is a part of me that says, yes, we should tell them that this is not normal. And normal is, something else, and we need to change it. But if you look back into history through time and time again, normality has changed, like when the industrial revolution happened, and a lot of things went really well, but also a lot of things went really bad, and there was a lot of senseless death because of automation and stuff like that. I wonder, would those parents have said, this is not the new normal? I think every part of society and every advancement of society, one needs to take with the bitter pill. And unfortunately, the bitter pill is getting bigger and more bitter now and harder to swallow. But there are also incredible advancements in science. There is so much good that is happening in the world. I stand behind very much this like independent association in Romania called Asociația Blondi, and they organize flights for children with heart conditions, like very very young children, newborns with heart conditions, and they raise money from wherever they can to fly these kids with medical staff and equipment and everything to a country that is specialized in the operation that they need. And they've managed to save, like 2-week old kids that at any other point in the world wouldn't have had a chance. They would have had the cleaner water and the cleaner air, but they would have been a write-off in a grand succession of 10 children, out of which 5 survived.
Yeah, so
So
I mean, what you're saying is, everything is nothing is black or white. We've
nothing
got
is
we've
black
got a
or
lot
white.
of good stuff with, and I guess what you guys were saying about whether we have to tell them about the new normal or not, it's, I have this very old, maybe from 1920s children's book. It's a Christmas book, and they have all these Christmas fairy tales, and and illustrations in it, and every single illustration in it has the snowy streets and the snowy mountains and the Christmas trees and whatever. And even in my lifetime, it went from we had snowy Christmases to none, zero, zilch. And of course, we went from when I was born, is that we still had proper, like, real Christmas trees. And as soon as I grew up to know, okay, so we're not doing that, I had the same plastic tree for the past 25 years or something. And so, yes, we made the changes and it became the new normal. Do I reminisce about it? Do I wish for those 1920s illustrations to be real again? Yeah.
Of course.
But then, I would also be going without penicillin. You're right. So I get
this
you.
is my thing. Anyone who hates progress is not allowed internet and penicillin. This is my counter. I
That's a
think
good
you've
Yeah,
one.
seen
take
this
take that
on
as that's a
social
warning.
media a lot.
That's
No penicillin for you.
It's a bit of a troubling thought for me that there are all these species going extinct, like every day, every minute, plants and animals too. And it makes me troubled that our kids, and that's including my kid, will not see some animals in his life. Like we are really lucky that I could take him to see most of the animals. And I always come with penguins because the penguins are the cutest of all endangered species. That's my personal preference.
I know.
Angler leopard.
Oh, leopard. That's a good one too. And so, meanwhile, while these endangered species are endangered, meanwhile we are bringing back dire wolves from 10,000 years ago and woolly mammoth as well. So it seems that our kids' new normal will be T-Rex in a fun park rather than seeing penguins in Madagascar. So
I'm so curious about that.
what do you think about that? Like when you say that, of course, technological and scientific advancements gives us these tools to save the world, actually, and we use it for bogus things like bringing back a 10,000 years old animal.
And flying pop stars into space. Like,
Yeah, I love
Oh,
that.
don't get
one
me
too.
started on that one. I'm sorry. That's not, yeah.
yeah, whatever. There was a bit of a victory there with Amanda Wen, but whatever. However, like just to this point, uh, I found, so a few years ago, when my daughter had just been born, my husband and I went to Texas, of all places, because he had to shoot there. And one day we were just in the car while she was sleeping, and we were listening to music, and this song popped up, which made me cry. It was the most beautiful song I had ever heard. And it was this, I'll have to give it to you guys, because it was kind of this baroque sort of shaped song, uh, sort of like a mother would sing to a child. And it was all nature themed, like listen to the lark and blah blah blah. I'll have to send you the song because it was
Send it. We'll
incredible.
drop it in the links.
Yeah. And I looked, I looked it up, of course, because I found it to be the most beautiful poetic thing, and I love poetry. It's just how I am. My daughter's name is Ezra, like,
Beautiful name, by the way.
and I looked it up, and I saw that this gang of people called Robert McFarlane, Jackie Morris, and they had made, this is another book. This is called The Lost Spells, but they had made this book called The Lost Words because they saw that the encyclopedia had removed a few years back a lot of the words pertaining to nature, to species of birds, species of trees, of plants, like all the subgenii of, I don't know what fern or whatever, like these things that used to be known before because they were also used in medicine and so on and so forth. And they had removed those words and they had instead put in the word for modem, the word for selfie, the word, like, because they thought those words are not needed anymore. People don't need to know what a crag is or whatever, like they. So these guys took a lot of the words that were removed from the encyclopedia and made a song about them, and they were all words pertaining to nature because
Because we
kids don't
lost all
know.
those.
And it's such a touching, beautiful thing that they've done, and it gained a lot of traction, and they've written these books, and they're just incredible, and everything is about like nature and the heartwood, and like all of these terms, a lot of them which I don't know. It comes as such a shame to me many times when my daughter asks, what flower is that, and I have no idea. And yet I know lyrics to songs that I hate because they've been, plugged in my head by whatever Uber ride I've had. And I don't know the name for that plant. And that plant could be. So, yesterday I've actually spoken to a friend, and we're going to get these like little botanical albums for our kids. And we're going to go in nature, and we're actually going to see the plants and translate them, because her my daughter's friends are half Italian and my daughter is half German, so it's going to be fun with translating as well.
Yeah.
But we want, like, I want her rather to know the difference between a blackbird and a lark than anything, you know what I mean? it's
Yeah,
it's just, it's an important useless talent.
it is. But
Just
it's not
makes
not even useless. That's what gives you a soul, actually.
yeah,
I think so.
exactly.
Yeah. And I think being open to the world, and you are doing that. It seems to me that you are doing a great job of bringing up an
I
open kid. So I think
hope so.
that's one of the most important thing. A bit, and I would like to, like, since you are working in the film industry, and then since I have the luck to work with Balázs, who also works in the film industry. So this question kind of goes to both of you. Do you think that the film industry, filmmakers, should do more for warning the people about the risks of climate change, or helping to mitigate the effects of climate change, or even make people afraid of climate change more?
Haven't they done that already with all the disaster movies? No one listened.
Those were bogus movies.
They just go,
Most of
oh,
them.
big thing
All
is
of them.
Hollywood.
Listen, even, and I'm not saying this, by no means am I degrading Roland Emmerich, but we all know that he's into like big action flicks. But even Emmerich made those movies 25 years ago, and no one listened. And then you've got the funny guys, and you got McKay, and you got a lot of people coming up and saying, "Hey, we'll do the Don't Look Up," and we'll put all the A-list stars in it, and still people don't listen.
Yeah.
So, what kind of movies or documentaries or series should be made that people actually listen?
Okay, so it's not like people, I think, assume that Hollywood has this superpower of stuffing down messages in people's throats. It's not true. Just because I recently heard, and it was I add, some very right wing film historian in a podcast, and she was saying that the reason Obama could become president, I'm serious, was because of Eddie Murphy's action movies in the 80s, specifically Beverly Hills Cop.
Oh God. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So, and at that point, I went, all right. So, if you really attribute this much power to Hollywood for whatever reason,
But I do.
you've got other
actually,
problems too.
And I was talking to the International Quorum of Film Producers, and we had half a day of speaking and then opening a dialogue. And I told them what I'm going to tell to you, Anna, and I'm going to. Balázs knows this, of course. He was there. He organized it. So, like Hollywood has a bandwidth of changing things. Like uh, look at the question of discrimination. They put real bandwidth behind it. Inclusion, discrimination, trans people, all that. They put huge bandwidth behind it. Climate change is a little a phenomena, and which kills millions now a year, and 8 to 10 million projected for this year, direct victims of climate change. So, isn't it a topic that we should include in sitcoms? Like how they included discrimination, how they included racism, how they included all these topics. Why not climate change? It should be in all sitcoms. It should be in every series because this is the new normal. This is part of life. As much as part of life, and people will hate me, as having a gay friend. Like it's the usual day by day thing that we live in this. Why isn't it there?
Because it's alarmist, and because the movie business at the end of the day is a business, and businesses make money out of people stargazing, and in this case this business makes money out of idealistic looking up. And at the end of the day, it's about the box office. It's about what was gained. Very few actual actors have the courage to speak against anything because it might harm their brand, and that's a huge issue, like. And I think it was now at the Oscars that Nikki Glazer went, you couldn't even tell people who to vote for because they didn't come out, they didn't want to hurt their brand, like Taylor Swift did. Taylor Swift went out there and said, okay, fine, I afford to lose this money and I afford to lose these followers, but I need to stand up for something. And she is not, the musician that I listen to. I think people think Hollywood has this huge power. Hollywood is a concept in the European mind. Hollywood is not this kind of Mount Athos where all the great monks and minds of civilization end up. It is a business. It is a business town. It is a business town where, for example, during COVID, restaurants suffered way more than in other parts because all of the business meetings were happening in their restaurants. And no one wants to lose, and no one wants to generate depression and nihilism. You want to create spectacular stuff, You want to show the tsunami being stopped by the mighty arms of the rock, but without saying, but that tsunami is scheduled for next week at the rate we're going, guys.
Yeah, and the issue is that it comes from people's psyche, because Hollywood really just reacts. And people, ever since the shamans danced around the fire and made noises to entertain the tribes folk, ever since then everybody's always looking for the hero in the story, and the audience themselves are seldom the heroes, and that's why they are looking for someone to save them. And if Hollywood doesn't provide it, they won't look. So, and if you really put out an alarmist, well, just true to the facts kind of story, people won't care.
But I do think, people who have the means to do something to physically change things, and a lot of great Hollywood actors actually do stuff. They are involved in humanitarian aid, in environmental aid. They go around the world. They fight for a cause or another. And that is what Hollywood can do at the moment. Putting climate change in sitcoms will make climate change less important. It will be something with a punchline of laughter afterwards, which will make it less so. The thing is, most of this stuff is reversible, like during the 80s when we had the ozone layer crisis. And then they discovered that it was this one particle in hairspray that once it gets up, it starts dividing in a certain way and attaching to other particles and so on. And that's what's eating up the ozone layer. Once they discovered if they just take out that component out of the hairspray, and then the ozone layer sort of started healing. All of these things are feasible if you kind of take your mind out of financial gain and think at the big picture. What is killing me is everyone, including the multi millionaires of this world, the polluters of this world, the people that dump radioactive yumminess into rivers that poison the earth, they have children too. So I don't understand how these two things can coexist. I'm just gonna poison next door? Like, there is no next door. Everything is interconnected. They they really need to understand that water flows, that air flows. It's just a bizarre sentiment that I am debating as someone that feels absolutely powerless in the grand scheme of things, that can only take care of their little segment.
And I guess,
I've, I've done a movie actually once, sorry to interrupt, I'm
go.
going to be very quick, which was very informative to me. It was called Camera Trap. I had done it actually before we did ours. And the director came from documentaries, and this was the story of four documentarists that go to see, the disappearance of a species. And I played the biologist, and the director would give us like a lot of homework so we could be free in front of camera to improvise. And I kind of delved into this world of biology and read all these treatises about how entire forests are being taken down in order to plant ferns, because ferns are in massive demand for a certain thing in Chinese medicine and so on and so forth. So how we kind of all impact each other. And because of deforestation, we're losing the species, like the yummy, fluffy Amur leopards that do not mate anymore, because if one is on this side and one is on this side of the forest and there's a clearing in between them, they will not exit that terrain, etc., etc. So everything has an impact on everything. And we've done that movie, and it was very, very touching. And anyone who sees it can just go, oh, crap, that's not good. But I think at the end of the day, it depends on everyone to become the hero on their tiny plot of land.
Yeah, I just want to add a footnote. When Anna said when we did our movie, she meant that they shot a movie together with Balázs, the
Yes.
man who was Thursday, Balázs's first movie director, basically your debut
It was
as a
my
movie
feature
director on a feature film, and Anna was great in it, and it's an amazing movie. If you can catch it, please do.
Thank you for the plug. And I was just gonna say that, Anna, when you're watching, when you talk about camera trap and the people watching, they go, "Ooh, yeah," you're talking about people like us with just basic human empathy. But that's
Preaching
the
to the
choir.
choir.
That's the choir we are preaching to.
Yeah.
The rest of the people. They're the reason we can't Hollywood can't do the kind of stuff. Is because those are the guys and girls who watch The Simpsons and root for Mr. Burns because they wholeheartedly believe that's the good guy.
Okay.
Thanks for being with us,
Thank
Anna.
you, Anna.
Thank you for having
Watch
me.
Amazing.
The Simpsons. It's still a good series.
Amazing to have you.
Thanks,
Thank
Anna.
you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for having me.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye. Bye.
Bye.
So our next guest is Istvan Mihaly, also known as Mr. Steve. He is an English, biology, geography, and science teacher and a public education leader with 3 decades of teaching experience behind him. He has been teaching all age groups from kids to adults, so he has an insight on all walks of life. As a science teacher, he puts emphasis on environmental issues, and as an English teacher, he uses environmental issues for projects and research so that the green education can happen as a byproduct. He's the most knowledgeable and creative teacher I have ever seen, honestly. He's doing, last but not least, he's doing a great job every day educating my kid at a bilingual school called Szabó Magda in Budapest. So, hello, Mr. Steve. Can I call you that?
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the nice lines about me. Nice compliments. Thank you. But it's not really about me. As a teacher, it's always about the others. So this was probably why I started teaching with the slogan sentence of one of my teachers in my head, who said that please always right in front of your eyes. So it's like a special visionary in front of you, capital letters, and me, kind of like small letters. So I think the earth needs that as well.
Yeah.
So
That's
this kind of selfish point of view should be in the background most of the time. If we could do that, I wish.
As a science teacher, you include climate change in the curriculum. Also, your school is prioritizing it as a social topic. I know that. I've been there as a guest to talk to kids about the topic. What is your experience? How kids react or get involved in climate change related discussions?
Students are really open to ideas about the earth and their immediate surroundings, of course. Probably this is the first thing they can learn about if you just think it over. So when you have a little toddler, the way they explore a room, a garden, and all these, it's a really important start in your life. So I think it's really a natural kind of interest in everyone to be really part of this kind of exploration, how we can protect our environment or what we can do to make it better. So I think it's not just the curriculum or teachers' ideas about all this, but in a child, we naturally have this kind of enthusiasm towards the planet and all living things.
What was the most surprising question kids ever asked you in connection with climate change?
Not a simple thing to answer because I spent most of my life basically in classrooms, so there are quite a lot of different questions. But which I can remember and which was surprising for me, once when we learned about geology of Hungary and the Carpathian Basin, and children learned that basically the whole area was covered uh, and it was underwater. So it was a sea area, the Pannon Sea, as we call it here in Hungary. Um, they were like, goodness me, if all the ice melts, because now scientists kind of frighten us with that kind of, there's this scary image in their heads, and they watch a lot of movies about the topic, obviously. then it can mean that we will be also underwater. But wait, they said, we are here in the Buddha Mountains, so they are tall, so we can survive. And then I asked back, okay, what's the point to survive in a smaller zone in a mountain range if you can't really go anywhere else and you will be totally isolated? So the work cannot be done like that. I mean, you can't go to school, you can't go home, people can't go to work, so it's not an option.
And
So
do you offer a solution to them when they ask this, or do they come up with whatever their fantasies permit them to come up with?
as a teacher, I think my task is to provoke them further. So I do not really say one kind of answer, but as I said, like a couple of seconds ago, I kind of asked back that what would be the aim of life after that if the whole earth is basically like covered with water and we just can't really go anywhere else. Would you like to live like that? So this makes them think, and obviously this can start some kind of action, hopefully even at home, when they just think about it and what they can do to prevent all this or to stop this process. But there's a major motivational factor behind all this in me, and every little step counts. So children love copying you as a teacher. You are a role model basically in class. So whatever you do, they kind of ready to copy that. And if they can see that you have a little glass bottle full of water and you do not buy bottled water every single day, they also do that. If they can hear you talking about the fact that you buy just second-hand jackets and you do not really want to buy fast fashion, they go to websites and they try to find something like that. So students are like this, they just copy you. So teachers have this kind of superpower when they know that whatever they do or say can be copied. It's a huge responsibility.
You are teaching every age group of kids, and like let's talk about elementary 6 to 14, which is a huge development age, or an age for the biggest, I think the biggest brain development we're doing between 6 to 14. When we talk about climate change to kids, and when you talk about climate change to kids, do we need to sugarcoat or the facts, or on the contrary, we should tell them how it is, being very bluntly in their face what's happening on Earth and what are the warnings scientists are putting out every day now?
I think it's really an old-fashioned concept to sugarcoat things. So nowadays, I'm quite often shocked how much students know about things, even at the age of 6, when they just come to school. And I think it doesn't work at all. So they just tell you the truth. They look right into your eyes and they just tell you about the brutal realities. So I think when a child is younger, it's not sugarcoating, but simplifying things for them. So that's important, obviously. But they can understand tremendous amount of information about things. So I always, when I can see that there's a group really interested about the topic, I just show them a short video footage, let's say. And after that, there are a lot of questions and we can talk about really serious issues. And even if we have an English class and some of the students are not English in the class, there are leaders in the group who explain things in their own language as well. So it becomes a really special discussion phase in class.
Is it you're saying they, a lot of kids come basically climate ready at age 6? They're aware of a lot of things that are going on around them. But is it how much of it this is part of the official curriculum, and how much does it depend on the individual teacher whether you convey all the climate change related messages?
It's in the official curriculum. So environmental problems, global climate change is there everywhere in the curriculum. So even from the very start. The sad fact is that in Hungary, during the last couple of years, in year 1 and 2, officially, they do not teach science. Our school is an exception because we have our own special program, which they accepted. But in most schools, it's not like that. This kind of topic should be incorporated, they say, into other readings, for example, when students learn how to read and write. But as you probably feel, the time is not really enough for that during those times. So at the very start, it's not that easy to find the time for all this. Later, there are more and more topics really connected to the topic. For example, when it's the topic of atmosphere and weather, climate, what climate means, it's a really important issue there, and it's in the books as well. So even if the teacher doesn't really want to talk about this, they actually have to. But every school has the opportunity to teach whatever they want to teach. Like 10% of the curriculum is basically in your own hands. So it's not a crime to have some time and talk about such issues. And the best thing is when it's not direct, I guess. So when they can see something special, they can realize that a problem is going on about a topic. Let's say a very simple thing. We learn about spring flowers and how they can help uh, to make our life better, then interestingly enough, children have an awful lot of ideas. Or I was just teaching about first aid in year 3 the other day, and the British first aid video channel has a short video footage where someone has a kind of small bleeding and or small burn, sorry, and the person starts the actual procedure you have to do in that case, and cold running water is the best option. And some children started shouting, but it's not good for the planet. We were taught to close the tap. And I said, okay, but it's an emergency issue and it's a different thing, and you need to be able to distinguish when you can waste water, but obviously still use
But
it.
I really like that, how that was the first reaction.
Yeah,
So
so
these are the kids who turn off the lights, and these are the kids who go home and start chasing their parents if they don't recycle.
I think there are students like that, definitely.
That's good.
They can even persuade them to do something in the afternoon because they know that Mr. Steve or another teacher has a special project the next week. So it's sometimes it's quite impressive how you can fire them up, and they have uh, children can be very good at manipulating people, especially after the age of 6 and 7. So this kind of manipulation can be in a good way as well.
So
So
what fires them up? Because you just used that term. So what is it that gets through to that generation that gets them to act on these things?
you would never believe this, but I will tell you, it's one word: fun. So if you make things in a nice way and it's fun, you clap your hands, and on Earth Day we sing Happy Earth Day to you. They just start smiling. They never thought of this as such, that we could sing the happy birthday song to planet Earth as well. And after this, they are more conscious about things, at least for a couple of days. But I think in the long run, it's more than that. So it's always the fun element which works. We learn something about which is an environmental issue, and they can do it, they can help the teacher. That's fun for a child. Doing things is fun for a child, especially under 10. So learning by doing is a really key factor in class. So if I let them experience things, That's fun, and if it's fun, it works.
That's great, and I'm a witness to that. He's doing really fun classes, and that kind of takes us to two questions I have, but I'm gonna mix them into one. That when we were kids, we were outside until the sun went down, kicking the ball, chasing each other, playing hide and seek. These kids, and even I see it on my son, they are they are spending their time with different things, also creating something, or they are watching or reading or listening to media in some way, and video games, pop culture, a lot of that. There is an information overload on them, uh, which for me is hard to see through. I have to draw a clear red line as a parent. But so, and you are a very tech savvy and creative teacher. Uh, so, do we need these tools now to actually get through to kids through this information overload haze which they live in, to sell a heavy topic like climate change to them?
Definitely, it's much easier if you use a lot of technology, but our responsibility as well to show them that the world is much more than that. So when we go and take part in in a simple school trip and we use public transport, for instance, and we just walk for a while, quite surprising for me that it's something new for students who live this big city life. And there are students who use an escalator, for instance, first time with me. And this is something which is our responsibility. But all in all, even if a student is like that and has this kind of really urban lifestyle, but you show them as a teacher that the world is much more than that, that you just like sitting in your room playing games or looking for information on your laptop. You can really go to a place and see it there with your own eyes, and how much more profitable that is. Or you can have a really different point of view if you experience things that can change them a lot. And I think these children who are really into technology and love being indoors, they are quite attracted to traveling. So, as I can see, this new generation, when they really need a big motivation in life or inspiration, and they hear about a school trip, for instance, they become so inspired that they can't really talk about anything else, just that, until it happens. So, and again, it's true that preparation and the waiting for it, that time, is more important than the actual trip almost, because that's the time when we can learn, prepare, and that's the uh, really motivating factor about it. When it happens, of course, it's also nice, but after that, the new experience can change them a lot. And it's like a common memory. So, this is how it works.
That's actually in sync with my personal way of bringing up Oliver. But he's an outdoorsy kid, so he spends a lot of time in the garden, and he likes to be outdoors. But of course, my way of making him smarter and making him more open to the challenges and the beauties of word and nature is travel. So you are a language teacher, so actually you are building a bridge for over the world with, especially with English language, and bridging the distance between two human beings. But also you travel a lot with children, and do you think it's a good strategy to make these kids more empathetic about the future of Earth, the planet, humanity? Is this something you would put in every curriculum for every school?
You know, it's an old saying, seeing is believing. So when you can see things with your own eyes, it's definitely an experience you will never forget, really. So especially if it's something shocking or something you didn't expect. So, but I would start with something very simple. I think we should also educate parents about this, not just our students and children, that traveling is also happening uh, on a daily basis. So when you just take your kids to school, it's like a kind of traveling for them, and they can see nature, they can see shrubs, they can experience time. And that is something which is missing in students' lives if they have this urban lifestyle. And that would be a crucial factor when it comes to environmental protection as well. So when you just leave your home, you get into a car, it's like a video game, lots of images in the car. You do not really look at the person, you do not really look into the eyes of the other person when you talk. Then you just leave the child there at the door of the school, and that's it. So you left a really important part out. Uh, and then many people, in a way, I think subconsciously, realize this, that they miss something in their everyday's life. And all of a sudden, they just want to travel, in summer or when there's a school holiday. And in 5 days, 7 days, 8 days, they want to have the experience they miss during their everyday lives. But the child doesn't need that much. So they don't need to travel to Japan or the Maldives to have this kind of experience. As I said earlier, every little step counts. And I know from scientific studies that actually this kind of fast way of traveling in cars, for instance, can make a child slower in class, which is like a contradiction in a way. But because they can't really experience time and distance, because walking can help you with that, but not traveling in a car. This way, they get much slower. So I think making them or having them this kind of offline life is perfect. And when you travel a lot, that's the best because that's offline.
Like you said, seeing is believing, and especially in today's day and age, when most of the things they see online, it's very hard to verify whether that's real or not. So they tend to not believe it. So if they see it in real life, it's probably real. What do you see? Do they blame us? Do they blame the older generation? Or like, is there a resentment that they harbor, or do they look for solutions and are they hopeful?
I think most of them really respect the fact, because they learn a lot and they get the information that due to the Industrial Revolution and all the developments and the things happened, this is why we can have a lifestyle earlier people could never have. So in a way, they appreciate this. So I don't think they will ever blame anyone. But hard to say. Probably they blame those people who lead certain companies or communities or certain corporations who are responsible for changing things and making things bad. So I can feel that very often, that they can see a powerful person, a politician, let's say, and they know that there are certain things happening because of that person. They do not like that. But I don't think they ever think of their parents as such.
So they do have a better moral compass than most adults nowadays.
I guess so.
And so then one last question for you. Do you think can science and or kids, because they will be leading this science, save us from becoming an endangered species?
Definitely. It's really a key issue, illiteracy. So literacy and numeracy are the keys. So when you know about the world, you can definitely change it and you know what to do. You can read about things. But when we think of statistics and we know that still like 60 million children on the planet are out of schools, and they do not even have the opportunity to start school. That's a lot of people finally. And in the long run, this number can kind of accumulate, and it's a huge population segment. And because it's a global issue, it's not enough to think of our own cities or our own country. Just because here literacy is okay, or illiteracy is not a problem, it doesn't mean that it's not a problem elsewhere. So everything starts at home and at the school. So this is why, and this is how I can refer to science from this point of view. Science is definitely something which requires literacy and numeracy. How could you understand changes in the world, or how could you analyze data, or you just look at a graph, let's say, or a bar chart, and then you can't see the consequences of things. Without learning, this will never happen. So the most important thing is to give them the opportunity to learn and have different options for them to see and hear more and more, and to read about things. And this is why science is crucial from this point of view. And they often say that during the Cold War, mathematics and scientific subjects were kind of forced, because everyone knew that weaponry and space war and such things could only happen if there are good engineers. So in a way, they kind of wanted the people to learn this kind of subject. Then this was not that important back in the 1990s. And unfortunately, there's a kind of step back in this kind of field. As I said, now, even in the Hungarian national curriculum, they do not have science during the first years of their studies, which is a shame, because children are really capable of doing things and understanding things. Plus, they are more interested in science than, let's say, Hungarian language teaching or reading in itself. So this should be changed a tiny bit, I guess. And again, this is our own task, because teachers, especially the older generation, can see this well. And this is how we can influence things in a good way. So yes, science can change a lot of things.
Thank you very much, Mr. Steve.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you for
Steve.
being here with us.
My pleasure.
And good luck with continuing the good work you do.
Thank you. Keep up the good work. Bye-bye.
Bye.
It is truly one of the greatest things in life to be a father. Also, as my son Oliver is getting older, getting smarter, and opening his mind, it is becoming harder and harder to be a dad. He watches and reads the news about disasters, war, climate change, and asks questions. Some of these questions I can't even answer. Like, how did we get here? When was the time when we started to prioritize ideology, money, politics over life, human lives, and the quality of life? Did we start it at the Industrial Revolution? Or did we start it when the first politician was corrupted by Big Corp? Or did we start to ignore human lives and the environmental factors with the rise of populism? Or should I go back further in history? Did pharaohs care about environmental factors when they got the pyramids built in ancient Egypt? I can answer the latter. They did, because they feared nature. They even moved construction sites and routes because of the scarabæus crossing it. When did we forget about respecting nature, which basically gives us our home and all the foundation for our economies? So what should I tell Oliver? These thoughts make me troubled sometimes when I look at him. What kind of world have we given them to grow up in? They grew up on a war and disaster-torn planet where 2/3 of the population is in constant struggle to get along or to survive, while the developed part is getting more and more stressed and depressed. And kids know and feel. They know everything. One of the most fulfilling parts of advocating for climate change is when I have the chance to talk to kids in schools all over the world. They are aware of what's happening and they have strong opinions. They grew up with a whole new mindset, and they give me hope. A hope that they will not compromise in changing, which is key to survival, and they will have no mercy on any old system which stands in their way. Why? Because they want to live and not just survive. While we are at it, who the fuck came up with the "it is what it is" attitude? And how do I personally cope with all this as a father? My choice is travel. I'm trying to show my son the world, the different cultures, religions, traditions, history, and nature. It works. Let me give you an example. Last year, we were in Tanzania in the summer, and one night we slept in a lodge near the Ngorongoro crater, the so-called cradle of life. It was Oliver's birthday, so the lodge prepared a cake and a little singing and dancing for him. The kids from the small village around were peeking through the fence. My son stood up at the end and said, "Thank you, and I would like to share this cake with the kids beyond the fence," because they probably never had their birthdays celebrated this way. So that happened. And as I was standing there with tears in my eyes, looking at these kids eating cake with no common language or no common cultural roots, just little humans enjoying dessert together, I felt that there is hope for humanity, because that is the very thing missing from our world now: empathy. Yes, Elon, you heard that right. Empathy. Until next time, goodbye.